In November of 2024, we finished the Red List of Threatened Species results for all of the world's reef-building coral species. The results showed that 44% of the world's reef-building coral species are now at elevated risk of extinction.
So we've been absolutely shocked as a scientific community the impacts climate change is already having on coral reefs. We've seen across the world these annual repeated severe bleaching events that most scientists didn't really expect to happen now.
The increased frequency of coral bleaching events has massively impacted coral reefs on a structural and functional level.
Most of the corals that are listed now in a threatened category are declining faster than their ability to recover.
This is a very, very important alarm bell that we need to be conscious of.
The loss of coral species and the loss of coral reef ecosystem function will have devastating impacts, not only on marine species, but also for the human communities that rely on them.
They provide huge services and benefits to people across the world, whether that's supporting fisheries by providing habitat for fish, whether that's coastal protection.
And we happen to be living on a planet now where we have coral reef systems. And they're important and they're productive, but if they go away, there's a huge loss of stability in our ecosystem.
This pretty much means there'll be less fish, there'll be less economic value from the coral reef, and there'll be less ecosystem services for humankind.
It's absolute threshold. So we don't know, in a way, beyond this line is a point of no return.
We're here in Bangkok, hosted by the IUCN Asia Regional Office, to assess the global status of coral reef ecosystems.
And what we hope we can do during this workshop is determine a methodology for how we're going to red list the ecosystem.
To achieve this first time ever assessment of the world's coral reef ecosystems, we've brought together over 30 scientific experts from around the globe with expertise in coral reef monitoring, in fisheries, in fish populations, and modeling to be able to better understand how these ecosystems are functioning.
By doing this, we can finalize a red list ecosystem status of the corals through the IUCN's categorization, which is a world-recognized authority that governments and policymakers around the world can understand.
One of the huge values of the Red List of Ecosystems is the fact that we can be having something which has standardized scientific robustness that can be applied at scales from global, regional, and even national, and it can drive decision-making at these scales as well.
The Red List of Ecosystems methodology has been established in a way that it can be applied to all sorts of ecosystems, from mangroves to coral reefs to temperate forests, and it's already been applied in over 4,000 ecosystems.
Over the next years, the Red List of coral ecosystems is going to be essential. At this point in time, we know where the reef systems are, but we know very little about the details of most of these systems.
A Red List of Ecosystem assessment, or an RLE, really tries to understand how an ecosystem is functioning and what are the risks posed by external threats and disturbances to an ecosystem. And are they driving an ecosystem's functioning to decline, or in some cases collapse, or we lose the key components that make an ecosystem what it really is. For our global coral reef assessment, we're going to look at 4 main criteria. So the first one looks at how much of the coral reef area has declined over the last 50 years. So how much area of coral reef have we lost? The second one is looking at how wide-ranging coral reef's distribution is. The third aspect looks at the environmental degradation, or how much oceans are going to be warming and what effect that's going to have on coral reefs. And the fourth aspect looks at the key biological components of a coral reef.
Through this, we will understand exactly what are the drivers of change within the coral reef systems.
And by doing that, what we have is that we can have an early warning of what's going on the health and the general health of the ecosystem.
Doing a global assessment is a huge undertaking. It involves a lot of people, a lot of time, requires data from coral reefs from all around the world,
including coral species data, fish data, data on invertebrates, as well as information on environmental changes over time.
And that's been collected by multiple different programs and institutions over decades. We've got to analyze that data in a way that works for all the regions, but that's standardized across all the regions as well.
This type of information can help governments design better policies and better priorities.
What we can do as scientists is make sure that the science is well understood, that it's popularized, that the implications of what's going to happen to ecosystems, that the warning signs are well recognized.
So from doing our red list of ecosystems here, we hope that we can sort of initiate this into effective conservation strategies. The countries for which these coral reefs fall in can look at how their reefs are doing. They can make informed decisions for how best to manage the coral reef environments.
Unfortunately, coral reefs are going to be one of the first ecosystems that we could potentially lose because of climate change. So we really need to leverage this for urgent climate action so that what's happening to coral reefs now doesn't start happening to other ecosystems.
But it needs to be driven by the willingness and leadership of countries to work together sincerely to lead the processes. Facilitating these processes is not an easy thing. It takes multiple disciplines, from government to science to civil society, but the facilitation of that partnership approach is going to be essential if we're going to have long-term success in making positive change.